The US is planting more corn and less soybeans. That's the update we are going to discuss with Jerry Gidel right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, today on June 28th, the United States Department of Agriculture has released a new report with the estimates for the planting and corn, planting of corn and soybeans in the U.S. and the soybean area has been reduced significantly in a shift to corn. How do you assess?
Well, it's kind of an interesting tradition that happens around the Midwest. We had a really aggressive decline because of the poor. Well, we had a big crop last year, and then we ended up having poor prices over the winter and that. And so back in March, they estimated, or the producers were grumpy and they decided that there wasn't going to be as many acres to plant corn. And that turned out to be a 6 million decline year over year, which is quite a significant factor. At the same time, they were anticipating soybeans to be up 2.9 million acres. So that covered up part of it. And there was also reduced winter wheat. There was some other adjustments along the way. And so we had, a hefty, oh, geez, I think it was like 4.5 to 5 million the reduction in overall planted acres. And one thing that producers always have an issue staring out their window and seeing acres that they should, maybe it's a reason to plant. There's optimism around the world, always in producers' eyes, that there might be a chance to make some money. And you can't make money if you don't have any crop in the ground. So I think that ultimately had a big power impact here on the corn, particularly at this point. In some cases, because the increased corn, they decreased soybeans accordingly. But in some cases here, not always. The one thing I think that interestingly enough came out of this thing was that some of the areas where there's double crop beans after wheat, Missouri is one of those areas, some of the Southeast, they did end up reducing their production numbers uh, on soybeans because of basically the lackluster prices we've had over since the 1st of June here in both corn and soybeans, even wheat because we're going into harvest from there. So the market, uh, after having wheat corn prices and all the way down to some very long-term support, we came up with a number today that kind of matched up with what's happened over the last 2 or 3 weeks here with the corn and rice is on the defensive. Wheat was going into harvest, and soybeans have struggled to stay afloat here at this point in the short term.
And now, what's going to happen with the markets in the upcoming days? Let's jump into that right away because I think that's the question many people are asking, given that the market has not reacted so much.
Well, that's always the case here. We've got things down to, as I said, low levels at this point. The one thing that we're going to deal with here with the USDA statistics is that to some extent the expanded acreage in that, and even leaving. I, I have a lot of problems with the 181 bushel yield, but at the same time, I don't sense the USDA is going to make a change on that on the July number because we really haven't got into the pollination issues along the way, so in that case, we're going to have to deal with that. But we're already at anything over 2 billion is too much, and we've had a 2 billion number. Now we have a 2.5, 2.25, I should say, carryover stock or higher. that's really not much difference at this point. So the at this point, the corn carryover stock projection for the coming year is about as the same as it was before the report. From there, the soybeans, with this reduction in planted acreages, and that uh, their output is going to be sliced, 20, 30 million bushels, something like that. And so, the carryover stocks here for soybeans aren't going to change a super amount here on that one. But the soybeans have a long period of time here to be impacted by weather, and that. So I think that the soybeans at this point, at least, are going to still take its nod towards what's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So far, we really haven't. Sometimes in the past, we've actually had pollination starting here this weekend, and we might have some of that in some of the southern areas of the U.S. But the major producing states, from Nebraska all the way to Indiana, and throw in some mid-south things, are just getting rolling. And maybe not even this week, we might not see a USDA pollination number at this point. And right now, there is some general forecast of above normal temps for July, and even parts of August at this point. Right now, the near term 6 to 10 and 8 to 15 day projections have some heat in the Midwest, but not as extensive as we just had recently here with the extreme heat that came from Des Moines all the way through to Columbus. And that it produced a lot of rain in the Western Corn Belt. We had the flooding out there. And now the one thing to note here is that the USDA's data today did not really include the what impact we might have. So we might have a slight reduction in some harvested acres here in corn and soybeans. The twist of that is it has to be a pretty significant area before the harvested acres go down. Otherwise, it turns out to be a reduced yield on that field, not so much a smaller harvested acres. So, in general, here there's definitely some issues that could impact us here just from what we already had recently. Plus, of course, right now at least, the central Illinois onwards to Ohio and parts of Michigan and Kentucky, things like that, definitely have not had the best of moisture. So any heat that would move into that area could still have some impact. And so we've still got a lot of uncertainties here on what might happen with U.S. prices, particularly when we're down at some psychological $4 levels on corn and on soybeans here, in the 11 to 11.50 price points, and even the $5 wheat here. Wheat is actually starting to try to suggest something might change seasonally, but we still have to see how our harvest progress goes. At this point, we should have a chance to maybe see this harvest in the plains move up into Nebraska.
Now, in the international markets, in terms of the volume that of the soybeans that are being put in the market, the Argentinian government today has given us a hint of about the progress, and over 40% of the soybeans in Argentina are already out of the fields.
Yes, yes, and I mean, also in that same kind of vein, I've heard that producer marketings haven't been as aggressive as the government likes, and that I don't know. We're going to have any one of these new U.S. dollar deals that they've had in the past, and that, but the Argentine and even the double crop corn that's coming out of Brazil. That's also another one. There was some, I think actually one of the Brazilian uh, firms down there actually increased their number a little bit. I know. I think actually it was the International Grain Council. Now that I think about it, they're the ones that increased their 121 back to 124. I don't know that Brazilian corn at this point still, I think, is uh, a mystery yet to be determined at this point. From there, and how does things finish up in Argentina? The weather has, been relatively quiet here, so it looks like that the seasonal opportunity to add moisture and maybe boost a crop is pretty well gone here in South America. So whatever's there is there. So the more we get done at harvest, the more we'll know about South America. But right now, at least, maybe that's even added to a little short-term situation as we've seen some harvest progress picking up down there with the weather being open.
All right, then what are you expecting for next week that we have another holiday?
Yeah, Thursday's a holiday, so we won't have any markets on Wednesday night, and probably not on Thursday night either. They'll come back in on Friday morning. At this point, the crop condition situation and that uh, will be a factor early in the week. The forecast, as I said, has some heat building towards the end of the week, and that I'm not sure exactly the timing uh, and how it's not. It's right now the projection isn't for it to last for weeks or anything like that, but it's definitely a first salvo in this market about the U.S. pollination weather and things like that. Actually, the one thing that's surprising we don't need of all things is any additional rain up in that northwestern corner of the Corn Belt up in there, northwest Iowa, Minnesota, South Dakota. Those areas are definitely been impacted, and we'll finally get some impact on that probably in the August crop report. They won't be available to us here on the July one. It's just happened too quickly, and even for the USDA to get us resurvey of those areas. And many times now, the harvested area, the official one doesn't really happen until September when they make their kind of final adjustments here on the 2024 planting and harvested area. So that's going to be an interesting one out here. But that's not going to help us in the July number. Everything is pretty well set at this point. From right now, I kind of feel like that there could be a limited producer marketings out here, so the market could find a little bit of base. But in general, here we're going to have to end up, and I think there is some definite possibilities of some weather scares here during the month of July. And I'd hope that we'll be looking to take advantage of those to finalize our last 10 to 15% in corn and soybean sales that we have in the bin here at this point from there. But yeah, today's production numbers from the USDA, excuse me, acreage and stocks numbers didn't find any bullish surprises. They did find some negative surprises there with more corn planted, and in the wheat side of things, we found a little bit of carryover crop being a little higher, and it looks like right now, at least, the overall harvested acres on wheat, which is interesting. That's a really big adjustment this late in the season, but it's not. It's possible at that, but maybe that will impact our average yield. The more acres you put into the harvested, you might have some lower harvested acres, so that could reduce the yields. But we'll have to wait to see that on the July USDA supply demand. But right now, at least. Going into the weekend here, we're looking at a little bit of weather issues at the mid to late part of next week, and maybe that'll be a positive factor for the markets.
All right, we'll catch up next week. We appreciate the analysis.
All right, sir, you have a good one. And at this point, let's anticipate this market being still a little choppy down here at these low levels.